is this worth arguing about? You know, pick and choose your battles. But for me, I'm choosing none. I am picking 0 battles. Hello, and welcome back to the Hard Feelings podcast. This is, of course, my mental health podcast where I talk about things like anxiety, depression, anger, shame, embarrassment, aka hard feelings. And today, we're talking about the latter. We're talking about embarrassment and shame. I've talked about this before, but each week's episode is always about what's weighing on my mind. And this week, I have been thinking a lot about why talking about my feelings feels so embarrassing. Obviously not in this format, because like, you know, I've got quite a privilege over here to film when you are not currently listening and just getting to kind of tap out after I've filmed this and not have to perceive you perceiving me. But when I'm talking to somebody in person, somebody in my real life about feelings, suddenly I'm sweating, dude. Suddenly I'm nervous. Suddenly I'm thinking of a million excuses to not actually talk about my feelings and just say that I'm fine. I really think it stems from being an extreme people pleaser for pretty much my whole life. It's something I'm actively trying to unlearn, but it's really hard when I've people pleased for so long that I almost feel like I can predict people's reactions to certain things before they even say it. And so sometimes I'll choose not to bring up my feelings because I don't want to cause a negative reaction or just cause any conflict. It's not even that I think the reaction's gonna be negative, but if I think me sharing my feelings about a situation could lead to an argument or not just like an immediate agreement, then I won't mention them. And you know, this is different than venting because I think a lot of us find it easy to vent to a close friend or family member about a situation, but I think there's a difference between venting about a situation and venting about your actual feelings. Like, when we're venting about a situation, we'll throw in words like, I'm just so annoyed because, I'm just so frustrated because, this is so annoying. You know, we don't actually say how we feel, we just say that we're annoyed, which is a feeling, but anger, frustration, annoyance are usually a symptom of another feeling. You know, in our episodes where we've talked about anger before, I've mentioned that anger is a protective emotion. Anger usually pops up when you feel a sense of injustice, or it's, you know, it's trying to protect you. The psychological reason why we have anger is to protect ourselves. But that being said, anger is usually accompanied by another emotion. So while it might feel like good to vent in that way, there's a difference between venting about a frustrating situation and talking about your true feelings. You know, that's why I love therapy so much, because my therapist is great at giving me guided questions to like get to the root of my emotions, because I often don't know what emotions I'm feeling. You know, it's a vulnerable position to put yourself in when you're the person to answer the question, how are you feeling honestly? People always say, how are you in our society, just like expecting you to say good. Hi, how are you? And it's a greeting. At least in America, it's a greeting to say, hi, how are you? And we don't necessarily expect somebody to start sharing exactly how they are, you know, unless it's relevant to the conversation. People don't typically answer, how are you, with not well, because that causes discomfort, you know. Then people have to ask follow-up questions and say, oh no, what's going on? And now like it's an, am I oversharing? What's actually happening? But I am very lucky to have people in my life who will ask how I'm feeling. But you know, there's also still been times where nobody's asked how I'm feeling and I need to talk about my feelings, and so I flock to my journal to talk about my feelings, and that helps. But why? The question I wrote at the top of my notes for today is, why does sharing my feelings feel so embarrassing? Why does it feel so embarrassing? And embarrassment is really just like the physical manifestation of shame, so it's really shame we're talking about here. Why do I feel so ashamed when I have to be the person to bring up that I'm not feeling good? I shouldn't even just say not feeling good. It's like I feel a sense of embarrassment and shame if I'm not feeling agreeable. Like if I am having a conversation with somebody I don't know very well and they suddenly say something that I don't agree with, or like that I don't think is funny or something, I will immediately just like mask that and pretend that I agree with them. I'll straight up lie. I'll straight up agree with people on something that I don't agree with, because the prospect of conflict, the prospect of any sort of argument just makes me so anxious that I don't want to do it, that I would rather just like say, ah, ha, ha, ha. You know, it's different when somebody says something outright offensive, okay? If somebody's saying something like straight up racist to me, I am gonna stop them and say, hey, no, don't say that. But if they, you know, if it's a low stakes thing where they're like, oh, like, isn't this program we're working on today wonderful? I'll be like, even if I don't agree on it, because it's easier to be agreeable. And that is the plight of the people pleaser, dude. We have just learned that it is so much easier to be agreeable than it is to tell the truth, that sometimes we tell little white lies because we don't want to cause that conflict, because we just want to be agreeable and we just want to be subservient. But we end up, sometimes letting people walk all over us because the people-pleasing desire to be agreeable just shoots us in the foot. And the reason that I don't like to argue with people or have any sort of verbal conflict is because I know how powerful words are. I still think of things people have said to me when I was 6 years old, 13 years old, that I can remember word for word, that, you know, had a big impact on me. And some of those words are good and some of those words did not have a positive impact on me. So with that information in mind, I am so careful with my own words. I am a highly sensitive person. I'm hyper empathetic to the way other people are feeling, and I am so terrified of hurting people's feelings that I will often just be agreeable or not say anything at all, because I'm so afraid. It's like an irrational fear of hurting somebody's feelings because I have had my feelings hurt by words before. So I just like don't want to continue that chain. I take the phrase think before you speak to another level. I don't just think before I speak, I overthink before I speak, to the point where I convince myself that it's not worth speaking because what I have to say is not actually good. So that's not good. You know, I don't think the phrase think before you speak is bad, because there are definitely some people out there who just have no filter and will say something without thinking, and if they had just thought about it for 2 seconds, they could have not hurt somebody's feelings. But overthinking before you speak is not the way. I can tell you that much for sure. This is kind of stupid, I'm gonna say it anyways, but back when Twitter was still Twitter, not X, I'm not on X or anything, I used to have Twitter in college, but I would never ever use it, and all of my friends used it. And I remember somebody asking me once, like, how come you don't tweet? Like, you go on Instagram and you post pictures and videos and stuff, but how come you don't go on Twitter? And I was like, because I overthink my words too much. The idea of posting just like a couple of sentences is not possible to me. I can give you a 10-page persuasive essay giving you every single supporting detail to what I'm saying, and it has to be a subject I'm really confident in, but like I am not somebody who will just like throw something out there. Like, no, come back. Immediately I want to take it back. There were so many times where I would tweet and then immediately delete it because I was like, no, actually, I don't know if I mean that. Again, the plight of the people pleaser. I don't know if I actually mean that. I don't know if this is how I feel about a situation or if I'm just saying this because I want to be agreeable. Like, I really have to stop and think in certain situations, because when you do something for so long and it becomes a habit, it's almost like kind of brainwashed yourself into thinking you're agreeable all the time. And that's something that I'm actively trying to deconstruct and work on. I definitely think there's situations where you have to evaluate, like, is this worth arguing about? You know, pick and choose your battles. But for me, I'm choosing none. I am picking 0 battles, and I don't think that's good either. I tend to be a very all or nothing person, and in this situation I am nothing, because I don't want to have that conflict. I don't want to pick and choose a single battle. But that leaves me feeling very unfulfilled and feeling very undefined and feeling like I don't have my own personality and opinions, which is also not a good feeling. It feels like I have 2 options, right? I can either, you know, pick and choose battles and choose a couple of them and have some uncomfortable conversations, or I can continue to choose 0 of the battles and feel unfulfilled and feel undefined and like I'm not really being myself. So, I don't know, I might have to start picking a couple battles here and there. Already my heart rate is increasing. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to fight. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I am a woman of peace. But having a verbal conflict is not war. I think that's what I have to remind myself constantly. My body reacts as if it's fight or flight whenever I have a disagreement with someone. It's reacting as if like we are arrows drawn, Katniss Everdeen, Hunger Games, like, and that is not the case. We are literally just talking. And this all really goes back to like evolutionary times, because back in the day, you know, back in the BC, if you will, people needed to be accepted by their village or by their tribe in order to survive, right? Because you needed the power of people to protect you from the wild animals and to like get enough food to stay alive. Like they needed each other, you know? You couldn't survive alone. Maybe some people did, but people really survived in villages and in tribes. So if you were rejected from that, it was an immediate threat to your safety. That is not the case anymore, and yet I still react as if someone doesn't like me, I'm in immediate danger. And social media really challenges this for me, working in social media, I should say too, and just being a social media consumer. On the one hand, I am perceived by a lot of people who know little to nothing about me, other than the 30 to 60 second video they've watched of mine, and occasionally they will misunderstand me, and that is really freaking hard. That like lights my desire to people please like no other. I have so much trouble not responding to people with a 5-paragraph essay explaining my true intentions that could not be conveyed in a 30-second video. But the good thing about social media that has been challenging the people pleaser in me is that sometimes I will get a mean comment from somebody and I'll click on the profile and see that it is someone who I would never choose to spend any time with, and someone whose opinion I absolutely don't respect, and I am able to let that comment go and not even respond, because I'm like, I don't care of your opinion, so I don't care if you like me. And that's what I'm trying to remind myself, is like, not everybody needs to like you, because not everybody is worth being liked. And you know, it's the other thing, is I'm so hyper empathetic and I like to see the best in people all the time, and I do think that people can change and whatnot, but you know, when it's a passing exchange like that with a stranger, it's not my job to fix them. You know, they got to go to therapy and work that out on their own. I cannot be a people pleaser and a people fixer. I will explode. I have tried it before. It does not work. When Olivia Rodrigo said, I am my father's daughter, so maybe I can fix him. Girl, run. No, I know she did. She did run, so that's good. I've been listening to Sour a lot again this week. But that being said, you cannot fix people. If you are not a mental health professional, you cannot fix people. You can encourage people to work on themselves, but like, it cannot be your job to fix people. So I let those comments go. Now, I don't try to make these people understand me more, because also when a comment is just mean-spirited, I really think you can tell the difference between somebody misunderstanding you and just being mean. For me, it's a lot easier to write off people who are just being mean, because that's just so not in my nature that I'm like, why would I want to hang out with a mean person? I don't want to make a mean person be nice. That's not my job. But if somebody's truly misunderstood me and I feel like I may have accidentally hurt their feelings because of that, that guts me. That absolutely guts me. I can't stand being misunderstood in a way that somebody feels hurt by. And being a person on social media, I think that happens to me more than other people, at least online. Maybe this happens to people in real life too. I've definitely had situations in real life where I've been misunderstood and it hurt someone's feelings, and that gutted me too. But that is just such a hard thing for me to deal with. Because like I said earlier, I know the power that words have. Words have impacted me for decades that I still think about. So I don't ever want to be the cause of that for somebody else in a negative way. You know, I hope something kind that I said to somebody sticks with them forever. But if I said something that wasn't perceived as kind by them, even if I didn't intend it to be unkind, that is horrifying. And you know, that's kind of a risk you have to take when you talk to people. I'm always just trying to remind myself that like, everyone is facing this struggle too. We're all gonna make mistakes occasionally. We're all gonna misspeak, but you can always correct yourself. You can always apologize and try again. You know, there's definitely conversations I've had with my boyfriend where I've said something that I like thought was romantic that he did not perceive as romantic. What's an example? I think I told him something smelled like him that was like maybe not a good smell, but I still liked that smell, and he thought I was trying to say that he smelled, but I was really just trying to say that I loved him. You know, that's a good example. People are gonna misunderstand, dude. That's just the way life is. I misunderstand people sometimes, and I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt and let them explain themselves again. People on the internet do not always do that. Sometimes people don't do that, and that is it's kind of a them problem, right? You know, all you can do in that case is apologize and try to make it better, but if they still don't want to give you another chance to understand, then that's kind of on them. That's a really hard thing for me to let go of. I really like to be liked. I want to be liked by absolutely everybody, even though I know that is physically impossible. In the words of Casey Musgraves, you can't be everybody's cup of tea because some like it bitter and some like it sweet. So I'm sweet, and if you like your tea bitter, then you're probably not gonna like the way that I taste. So please don't drink me. Oh boy. All right, I think that's enough talking about the meat of the episode. Let's move on to the fun stuff. That was fun for me too. But let's talk about the mental health bop of the week. Goddess by Laufey, her newest single, is so freaking good and I think so appropriate for this week's topic because the song is all about somebody who loved her for the way that they perceived her and not the way she actually was. My favorite line is, "You took a star to bed, you woke up with me instead. You must have felt so deceived." Saying that this person, like, you know, loved her when she got off the stage after her performance. She was like this beautiful goddess, and then when they woke up with her the next day, she was just a normal human, and they felt deceived by that because she wasn't the idealized, glamorized, perceived version of her that they had perceived. And that is definitely something I struggle with too, is feeling like, having been a people pleaser for so long, that I've given people a different idea of who I am than I actually am on the inside, and I'm actively working to deconstruct that and try to just be more true to myself and be less agreeable. But yeah, it's a tough thing to deal with. Definitely listen to Goddess by Laufey. It is an absolutely beautiful song. She is so freaking good. It's the piano in this song. It's like, it'll make you cry. But yeah, that's the mental health bop of the week. And you guys, it's the end of the episode. Oh my goodness, I got some cool makeup on today. I'll put the details down below. I've got little flowers. If you're listening, definitely come check me out on Instagram and YouTube if you want to see some cool makeup, and also, I don't know, I feel like if you're not listening to if you're not watching the visual version of the podcast and you're open to it, come give us a watch, dude, because I feel like my facial expressions convey a lot. Look at me, dude, this is literally me being a people pleaser right now and being like, no, I need you to perceive me correctly, so you have to see my face so you have more clues into how I actually am. Oh my gosh, never mind. I can't stop people pleasing even when I'm literally just trying to get you to subscribe to the podcast. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening to yet another episode of the Hard Feelings Mental Health Podcast. Subscribe, like, follow, rate, review, do all of the things that you do with podcasts. Check out the description box for the mental health song of the week. I always put a lot of good stuff down there. Just go check out the description box, okay? I'll talk to you next Friday with a new episode. Bye! Take care of yourself!